very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum Xtra, coming to you live on Radio 1 FM 90. Now, we are broadcasting from the central building where this radio station is located, but also live on our website, which is www.radio1fm90.com. You click on the icon with the word Listen Live. Now, you can also find this radio station at the different radio listening apps, which you can obtain from the App Store of your smartphone. You download, look for Radio 1 FM 90, and as long as you have an internet connection, you should be able to listen to us from anywhere across this globe. Now, today being a Friday, we review the major events of the week. We are going to look at the presidential campaigns as they unfolded this week, at least the key candidates. Well, the NRM was in Busoga, where President Yoweri Museveni continued with his search for votes. Busoga is considered as a battleground in the 2026 general elections because of the competing interests there. There have been disagreements in that particular area, even during the 2021 general elections, but they came to the fore with the fallout between Rebecca Kadaga and the current Speaker of Parliament, Annette, who some people say wants to extend her influence further in Busoga region. These issues have allowed the opposition, mainly NUP, to make inroads in that particular area. Now, while the NRM is confident that they will win that region, the fears remain that the opposition might pose a big challenge. President Yoweri Museveni focused more on the issues of poverty eradication, helping the youth through the presidential skilling program to get household incomes enhanced. He also promised hospitals, better roads, and free education, among others. Now, the overarching message of the NRM candidate in this election process is wealth creation. He has been using pre-recorded videos to demonstrate to people how they can get out of poverty. He has used the 4-acre model, PDM, among others, as examples. Today, he described his fellow candidates as jokers who are making mistakes and telling open lies about the performance of the NRM. We'll be asking a question: can the NRM retain its dominance in the Busoga region at different levels? Now, the NUP has been courting the West Nile region. The NUP candidate, Robert Kyagulanyi, kicked off his campaign in this region. He talked about many challenges the region faces, including poverty, unemployment among the youth, deployment of the army on water bodies, which has resulted in chasing away fisher communities. He talked about bad roads. He talked about killing of smugglers, corruption, dictatorship, among other things. His overriding message in this election has been national unity, especially to the youth. This message has been dominant in all the regions where he has been, and we know the West Nile has been a bedrock of the NRM following their successful eviction of FDC, which had taken root in that particular area. But the concern is about the huge crowds that have welcomed the NUP candidate in that region. Remember, he did campaign there successfully during that time when Kassiano Wadri was elected as MP for Arua municipality. And then, of course, this week, there's been a focused discussion on the Unopposed phenomenon. Now, there's been concern about this situation where opposition candidates are getting out of races or being eliminated, according to opposition party leaders. Now, the opposition NUP has had several candidates dropping out of the races. Some political analysts say that NUP nominated people it had no credible information about. They say it's possible they were infiltrated by the NRM in a well-designed mission. The NUP claims that its people are being targeted through a scheme facilitated by corruption and intimidation. And the question we'll be asking there, should we be concerned about this situation, or we should just consider it as a mere political reality or a normal political maneuver? I have a panel for today. Let me introduce those who are already here. Dr. James Tweheyo, member of the NRM Electoral Commission. Not so long ago, he was a member of the NRM Central Executive Committee, where he represented workers. Good evening, Dr. Tweheyo. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Xtra.
Good evening, Kenneth. Good evening, all the listeners and the possible viewers. I'm happy to be here so that we share issues.
All right. Also in studio at the moment is Mr. Timothy Chemonges, Executive Director, Parliamentary Watch and at the Center for Policy Analysis. Good evening, Chemonges. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Xtra.
Thank you, Kenneth. Good evening to Dr. Tweheyo, and good evening to all the listeners. Glad to be here. Looking forward to breaking down and dissecting the issues at hand. Thank you.
We expect two more guests to join us during the course of this discussion. They are on the way, caught up a little bit by the jam. Let's begin the discussion, Dr. Tweheyo. We want to begin with you. You're fresh from Busoga, where you've spent the whole of this week trying to campaign. There are challenges in that particular region, including your support base actually being divided because of the battle between two heavyweights, two leaders, Rebecca Kadaga, Anita Among, but also we know those divisions did exist in the past, even before the latest competition for the Central Executive Committee came in. We also know Busoga has a problem of poverty, and they have issues to do with the sugarcane prices and so forth. So some people think that you're likely to get a bloody nose in Busoga. How do you rate your performance in this particular area of Busoga this time around?
Interestingly, our performance is coming up. Our support is growing. Unlike the previous elections, where we had a lot of issues and challenges, and where our performance was reasonably low. If you remember, in the last elections, especially in a district like Ruka, we lost to our Gorik Chaguranyi, NUP. They got around 52, we got around 47, which was a very interesting scenario. In some other districts, of course, we performed, though not as well as we should have performed. Now, you're looking at the challenges, particularly of the differences between the two heavyweights, Triple A, whom we call Anita Mong, and we call her Rebecca Alitwara Kadaga. That difference has been there. But in our place, they say that if you were tilling the land with a hoe, and there is a stone that you can see, you cannot use that hoe to hit the stone when you see it. So the problem of the two was identified. We have put all the interventions we can put to ensure that these don't spill over further again into Busoga to destroy the popularity and vote of NRM. And that's why we have been there. We have traversed the area. Today we are concluding with Busoga. We are finishing the last rally at Jinja. I think it is over now.
The rally has actually ended.
It ended, and you saw it. Those who watched, you saw it. It was a good one, well attended. Now, the issue of Busoga of poverty, the issue of Busoga of sugarcane, the issue of Busoga of bad roads, those issues have been tackled. For example, the sugarcane issue is subsiding because the factories that were there. You remember at the time there were issues of the location of the two factories in the neighborhood of each other. But subsequently it was sorted and all the factories are operational. You remember at the time people would grow sugarcane and would even transport the sugarcane to Guru, Ratiak. It was a bad scenario. At one point, they would even have to get a letter to be allowed to supply. But as the market stabilized, these people now can grow their sugarcane, can supply it. The only challenge that is still there is that sugarcane cannot get out of poverty if it is grown on a small scale. Because the 18 months you grow sugarcane, somebody has grown beans on the same rate, on the same ground, would have harvested at least about 4 or 5 times. Now, the money he would get out of sugarcane would be about a quarter of the money he would get out of beans. At the time they are growing sugarcane, they are growing maize, doma, they call it doma. So this time there is some reasonable improvement.
All right.
And I'm very sure as we age in, things would be better. And of course with PDM and with the Myoga, there is a lot of improvement there. For example, in Ruka, where we lost, we have tried to follow it up clearly, and we insisted that we get the details of what happens in Ruka. One of their complaints was health. They didn't have enough health centers, but we have upgraded, since then, we have upgraded 3 health centers, health center 2s, health center 3s. We have had now 8 sub-counties with health center 3s. We have a health center 4. we have had 36 Emyoga circles. And all these have received about 1.9 billion. We have 64 parishes which received 19 billion in the parish development model issues. They now have the seed schools that we expected. Now, the biggest challenge you have there is quality. But you cannot carry everything at the same time and you improve it at the same time. Things must go in leaps. The road that used to be a bad one, that comes from Ruka to cross over through, to go to Kalina and all those other areas, it is now listed for work. And the people have built confidence because much as we promise things and they delay, but we are consistent in what we promise.
All right. I was looking at one of the key pledges you made in 2021, specifically on the issues of sugarcane.
Yes.
You had actually promised to construct small-scale sugar industries in Busoga. There were 8 in number. According to the records, about 18 billion was sent to UDB for that particular purpose, but it seems nothing has taken off.
At the moment, they are still concentrating on the supply to the 2 main factories that are there. Because you see, much as you would want to put some small scale, if you put small scale without expanding the source of the basic items to use, then you would be even spending the money and they would be idle at one point. I'll give you an example. Some factories, somebody can put a factory in a certain place. The factory works on the available, like this, for example. Talk about the slaughterhouse in Nakasongora. To us, it was a mistake, and we must accept that, because if you put a slaughterhouse in Nakasongora and it's supposed to slaughter 400 animals per day, and our cows grow only after maybe 20 months, then where will you get those animals? So it is there, it is idle.
All right.
So we said, no, the money could be there, but it could be used for anything else because the factories that are there are the meantime.
So you are confident you're winning Busoga?
We are going to win it. Yes, we are.
All right. Let me introduce the other 2 guests who have actually joined us. Let me introduce Mr. Benjamin Katana. He's the National Treasurer of the National Unity Platform Party. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Xtra.
Good evening, Kenneth. It's always a pleasure to be part of this show. Greetings to my colleagues here on the show and to the people listening to this program.
Also in studio now is Miss Nana Namata Annette Mwafrika. She's a candidate for Woman MP Kampala from the People's Front for Freedom. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Xtra.
Good evening. Good evening to all that are listening in. And thank you for having us.
All right. And let me switch now to Mr. Benjamin Katana, because you and the NRM, NUP and the NRM, battling it out for position of authority in our country. And you found us doing the analysis of the NRM's focus on Busoga. And you came in at the point when Dr. Tweheyo was actually emphasizing that come rain, come sunshine, they're actually going to win Busoga, including Luka, where you gave them a bloody nose in the last elections. What would be your response to that?
I think you are familiar with the old adage of if wishes were horses. My teacher here and OB can only wish that NRM will win Busoga, but it's not a possibility. But when I walked in, most important, I think what is most important is not who wins Busoga or who wins which part of the country. What is important, I found him talking about the interventions that the NRM has had in Busoga. What is important is how can this region be transformed? Because when on campaign trail, I made an observation that the NRM government is running Uganda like an apartheid state, especially in the economic cluster. Because a child who has grown up, for example, in some parts of this country, and one who has grown up in other parts of the country, I was in Bukedi, in Busoga. If you look at the homesteads, you don't even need to look at the statistics. because the statistics, while you cannot, it would require research for you to go and verify, you can observe. You look at the homesteads, you see people are still living in huts, grass-thatched huts. There are children in some parts of this country who don't know that there are people who live in grass-thatched houses. And now this is a region that has had a potential of being a leading economic powerhouse for the country. If you look at the plans, for example, even during colonial times, Busoga had been earmarked as one of the economic hubs in the country. So for a very long time, the key economic activity in Busoga has been sugarcane growing. But where is the research to make it more productive? I remember one time I was moving with a friend, an Indian friend, and he was telling me that part of the problem is that the type of sugarcane, of course I was not able to verify, is the type of sugarcane that we grow in that area is not the most up-to-date and productive. But that's a debate for another. But where is the research? Where is the investment for the government to diversify and make sure that, because you see now even a person who has produced a truck of sugarcane may not be able to pay school fees for a child at Mwiri. But do you know how much effort you need to invest in producing a truck of sugarcane? It's too much effort. So if we are looking at empowering citizens, boosting household incomes, then we should make their homes productive units, first of all. But you should also create appropriate market that will ensure that they benefit from their effort. Because people can work for the whole day, the whole night, but are they benefiting from what they are doing? But most importantly also, if you look at the infrastructure development, they are talking about, I was in that whole region, other than the international trade route from Mombasa, which is also damaged, to Jinja. The roads are in a terrible state. Maybe the one going to... Yes. It's in a terrible state. The other roads are in a terrible state. But also, I think you cannot look at the region in isolation of the country. That if you look at the business environment, because, for example, the biggest challenge now we have in that region and the country generally is unemployment, especially of the urban poor. If you attend any of those rallies, I'm sure Dr. Tweheyo has attended some in that area. Majority of the people who attend these rallies are 30 years below. They have no jobs, they have no skills, they have no businesses they are running. The only way such people would be part of the economy, in addition to what we have talked about of turning their homes into production centers, is to create a conducive business environment so that you are able to attract meaningful investment that will create massive employment opportunities for people. But how do you create that when the cost of bringing raw materials from Mombasa to Uganda is high because the train system is dysfunctional? The state of roads itself, every 2 years they are repairing. So they close off this road, then the goods that are coming to Jinja or Kampala, they take a week that should have taken 2 days. I always give an example that in 1944, my mother was born on a train, train wagon. The mother was traveling from Kasese to Bukedi area. But today my children can only see a train on TV. So if we had a functional train service, the people from Busoga region who are here buying products in Chira at 200 million would be working in Kampala and sleeping in Kamuri. They would use that money to create a business in Kamuri and employ people in that village. And promote local economy. I think for me, we lose the point. When we focus so much on who is winning this, who is winning what are the Ugandans winning? All right. Okay, even if a political party wins in that region, what are the people in that region winning in this election? I think for me it's the most fundamental question.
All right, Spectrum X on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's take a break now. When we return, we'll hear the views of Mr. Chemonges, but also Mwafrika, who has also joined us here in studio. Now, stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703-090-090. Spectrum Extra continues after this break. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week. I have a panel for Dr. James Tweheyo, who comes from the National Resistance Movement Party, Mr. Benjamin Katana, who comes from the National Unity Platform Party. We have in studio Ms. Namata, Annette Mwafrika. She comes from the People's Front for Freedom Party. And Mr. Chemonges, Executive Director at Matter Watch and the Center for Policy Analysis. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, your host. Do join us. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703-090-090. We're still looking at the campaigns process, but we're still focusing on the NRM campaigns in Busoga sub-region. Now, let me come to you, Mr. Chemonges. Very quickly, your thoughts on this situation in Busoga and the NRM's determination to win over this region despite the inroads being made by the NUP.
Thank you. Busoga is quite unique in a sense that despite its long-standing support to NRM, the poverty rates seems to be glaring and the situation seems to be getting worse. And if I've had a chance to traverse the area, and you can see poverty very visibly in the households. But also more importantly, you will notice that looking at the statistics previously, actually the poverty rate of Busoga are slightly higher than those of the national average. In the last statistics where we currently have that of the national statistic, previous I think it was around 20 and now reduced to 16, Busoga at 21%, which is slightly higher than that of the national. For me, it speaks to the fact that whereas there's been a bit of support by the people, there seems not to, these are not translated into actual and tangible, impact for the people. We see that in the previous elections there was there was a shift in terms of the support base, where we increasingly see the opposition, and now that led by the NUP, making some significant inroads in the area, which again is a good thing, but also speaks to the fact that the people seem not to feel or even have a proper benefit for the support that they have extended in the many years that they have done. And the very unique phenomena now that we are seeing, especially at the leadership level, because again today I think for Busoga region it has largely been about the leaders and very, very little about the people. And it speaks to the issues that we highlight here around the issues of poverty, largely due to Busoga largely being an agricultural base. But this agricultural base, again, focusing more on sugarcane, for which most of them are small-scale farmers. And for sugarcane, the economists will tell you that for you to break even, you need large scales of farming, of land. And majority of them will be, majority of the people in Busoga will an average of maybe 3 acres or less. If you look at the maturity period for which they should be able to benefit from their produce, it tells you that it may take longer. Of course, with the questions of fragmentation of land. But more importantly, I think that it would be good to speak to the leadership questions that we are seeing today, where we see that the former speaker, that's Right Honorable Kadaga, and now the speaker Annette among the battle in trying to create a stronghold, that we seem to see a significant force from Anita trying to create a base, trying to make a very strong case that I can be able to, even after hammering you on the SEC elections, I can come to your backyard and still create some sort of dominance, which I think it's a very wrong direction, and I think it's a failure on the NRM, both as a party but also as the secretariat, to ensure that leveraging on differences of leadership should not compromise on how what goes on in the region. Because we see today, you notice that actually, with the declaration of Anita as a candidate, as an opposed, she seems to have shifted all her forces to Busoga. And I think probably my understanding from where I see is that there seems to be an understanding, especially from Annette, that because of the failure by Kadaga to get the seat in the SEC, there would be a section of the people who will withdraw their support from the ruling party. And therefore, what the speaker has resorted to is to go back to Busoga and try to mobilize that group of people, which I think it's a very wrong approach, and that the NRM failed to engage these two leaders to exercise some level of magnanimity, especially by the winner, who was the speaker, who should have, despite the fact that, in Africa we say you don't beat someone who is already down. You give them the chance to again pick up. And you see that Kadaga loses for the second election, and she's followed again back to her backyard, and you see what's happening. And I think that is not a very good direction, and probably it's likely to brew some level of resistance from the people. Because again, I think at the end of the day, politics is local. Our politics is local, and that even when you come from a very different region and want to make a very strong case in creating some level of dominance, people will still endear to the leaders that they feel are closer to them, but also feel that they have been with them through the journey. We see the NUP team making some level of inroads, and maybe as we shall be looking at it later, you see the level of reception that they are receiving across the country, which I think it speaks to the fact that the ground is ready for change, that the ground seems to be seems to have concerns that have been there for some time, and they seem not to have clear solutions to them. Right. And therefore, probably change is also something that the population is very, very clear, and probably, of course, the biggest question is how to translate this, this support, especially from the NUP, to actual election, which is a tug of war. But more importantly, I think for me, the Busoga question still remains to be a leadership crisis, and there's a leadership gap which the NRM has very deliberately orchestrated, and this leaves the people still very poor and helpless.
All right. Let's now go to Ghana. Ghana, I know your political party does not have a candidate in this race, but you're following closely what is happening on the campaign trail, and the NRM and NUP are fighting to dominate Busoga. Let's hear your take on that.
Yes, you may say we do not have a candidate in the race. Yes, as PFF, we have announced that we will go with one of the stronger opposition sides. Looking at what's happening in Busoga, for me, as a PFF member, I think about what's in it for the people of Busoga, actually. Whether NRM is getting strong or keeping its strength there, whether it's losing it. Like my brother mentioned, what's in it for the people of Busoga? Poverty rates, very, very high. I have also had the opportunity to go through Busoga maybe months ago. You look at how people live and then compare with lines like NRM has had its strongholds there for many years. They've had a strong girl, Becky, there. It comes back to always asking, what do the people themselves win from it? What do the people win from this competition? Of course, I do see that NUP has growing strength all over, not just in Busoga region, but around the country. The question is, how do we get to claim the seeming wins looking at how the campaigns are going, looking at how many people are getting thrown into jails, looking at the harassment as people are on the trails, for me, this signifies that the NRM, much as they keep singing how they are strong in this region and that region, the weakness is in how they treat opponents. So, Busoga region, I believe very much that NRM will lose to the opposition, including ourselves. We have some roots there with MPs. We have hope in strong ladies like Salam Musumba. Busoga, I think, will vote the NRM out. Yes.
Dr. Tweheyo, very quickly, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to the comments that have come in before we go to Mr. Katana, because he also has a region to talk about, the West Nile, where they have spent this particular week. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, certainly, I would like to respond, because much as my brother Katana was talking about the poverty index on the Chemonges, yes, the poverty index has been high in all areas, without even the exception of Busoga. Much as the Busoga has been higher, and the reason has been very clear. It is because of the concentration of the home incomes on sugarcane and maize. But now, as I told you, there has been special attention by the NRM party to make sure that PDM reaches down, trickles down, to make sure that families and homes have some incomes. And that is why we can even account of the amounts of money that has been moved in PDM, that have been moved in Myogas, that have been moved in the circles. Even those who didn't have anything in their pockets at the moment have started coming up.
What would you tell people who tell you that cash handouts cannot solve the problem of poverty?
These are not necessarily cash handouts. They are handouts support projects. And these projects are for individual families and homes. And therefore, if anybody doesn't have any project that can earn him a shilling, then that person will remain perpetually poor. It is not a crime to be poor, but it is a crime to remain poor if there are avenues that can bring you out of it. And therefore, we can say, yes, Busoga has been having a lot of poverty, yes, but we can say, as a party, we are concerned about it, and have done something about it. Right. And that is very, very clear. Number two, it is also true that in some areas, as my brother is saying, the road network and others could be poor. But we should also differentiate between wealth and development. Does it mean that in all areas where the roads are bad, people are poor? That should be the first question. The answer is it accounts. It accounts for the incomes and, of course, the supply and demand and all this, but it also does not necessarily mean that people should be poor because of the bad roads. Otherwise, where there is stomach, there wouldn't be any poverty at all. If you go to Kaleiro, if you go to Kawembe, what is there? Isn't there tarmac in all those areas? Why are the poor people there? It's because they don't have household incomes. It's because they don't have jobs. So all those must be given attention. It is not only the question of making a good road. No. Even when they make a good road, you must make sure that people who live around it are supported to generate some income for their own homes and to have something to sell. If you go in some areas, by the way, there are areas where you go on the roadside and there's nothing you can pick from there. What can you pick as you go to some of these areas? My brother Katana knows. When you are moving from Muntungamo to Mbarara, you know you can pick pineapples at Nyarteme. You know you can pick Bogoya or Gonja along the way. If you are coming from Arua, what do you pick? Maybe some mangoes in the season. Even these mangoes, by the way, are not sold at the rate at which they're supposed to go. So let's first focus as a country, by the way, not only as a party, but also as a country.
All right.
Regardless of whichever party we belong to, let's focus on the household income.
All right.
In order to save our people from the poverty which is eating all of us. And poverty is not an exception of the opposition. Even our own people are very poor. So let's focus on it as a country, not simply as a party, but as a party in position, we have a duty to ensure that the people who are poor are held and saved and lifted from the poverty where they are living, and make sure that their life is improved in terms of income.
All right. Let's now go to Mr. Katana. Mr. Katana, your party this week has been in the West Nile region, and I don't know whether you have concluded or you still have activities there. And the talk around town has been about the huge crowds that you've pulled there. And the challenge, people say, is how does NUP turn that seeming huge support that you have received in the different parts of the country into votes? And why do you think the West Nile region, which has been dominated by the NRM for quite some time, can shift to the opposition, NUP?
Yeah, first of all, Kenneth, is that maybe before I go to that, just 2 or 3 things about what Dr. Tweheyo mentioned.
You're still in love with Busoga. Okay.
Yeah, about the special attention that the NRM now is giving to Busoga. I'm sure he's very familiar with where him and I come from. He said, that you have remembered to cover yourself. when
the days already.
I don't know the Uganda version, but yeah, so even if after 40 years you are just paying special attention to Busoga now, it means that it has never been your priority. That's why the people of Busoga, even in the previous election, voted for NUP. Yeah, so regarding West Nile, I think first of all is that the enthusiastic support extended to the opposition in this election is not restricted to West Nile. Wherever we have been, we are in Mbarara, we are in Ishaka, we are in all these parts of Uganda. The turn-up is big. And the difference is that these people, nobody has been transported, nobody has been given a T-shirt. I have seen the NRM people saying these people are walking to the rally, but you can think they have been kept in a dormitory because everyone is putting on a new T-shirt.
Actually, they get the T-shirts on site. When they reach, that's when they get the T-shirts.
Videos of people walking. They said, these people, you people have been saying we transport supporters. Yeah, but if you look at West Nile, like the rest of the country, I think there are about 3-4 things. And he has talked about that if you're driving from that side to Kampala, what do you pick on the road? And for me, in my view, it is not a problem of the people in that area. It is a problem of leadership. The role of leadership is not just to build structures, but to build culture, to build the right mindset, to lead people in a transformative trajectory. If people are talking about Singapore, it was a fishing strait, but a transformative leader emerged, spoke to the people. Because when you're a leader, you have convening power, you have influence. If you have been a leader for 40 years, you have had all the time in the world to shape the thinking of the society that you lead. So if you have failed to do that, and I always see people crediting the NRM leaders being wise, so wisdom which cannot transform the lives of people you lead is not useful to society, because leadership is about that. So when the people of West Nile, like the rest of the country, are not part of the economic equation in Uganda, to date, they are struggling to access electricity to be put on the national grid in some parts of West Nile. For a long time, the NRM, having mastered the politics of patronage and identity, they will go pick 3 people, say West Nile is represented in government. But representation of people in government is not having individuals of the same identity, tribe or religion. How are they part of the economic agenda? How are they part of the development agenda of the country? They have been left out. We have talked about the railway transport system. People would board from Kasese, go to Pakwachi. It's no longer there. But generally, if we are talking about unemployment, if you go to Arua, you'll be shocked by the number of young people in that town. I think it's one of the most populated towns in Uganda. But where are the jobs? Jobs largely are not created by government directly, but indirectly. if you're going to have an investor who is going to change the lives of people in a community, like, because you see, you're talking about mangoes, but where is the factory that adds value to the mangoes in that region? That will even, because most of the mangoes that you find on the road, they are not planted by people, that it's not a farm, it's not an orchard that someone has invested in. But the mangoes that grow in that area show you that if government paid attention and encouraged the people, supported them with irrigation, with a factory, with power, that you'll find that Uganda is, from that region, is exporting juice, is exporting dried fruits that are up to world standards, and you are not just selling here alone, but also selling in global markets. The challenge is that we have had a government for 40 years that only marks its performance on the basis of where Uganda was in 1986, not on the basis of where Uganda should be in 2025. So for them, small achievements, they look at them as huge achievements. Say we are now giving each family in this region 1 million. But if the NRM had worked so well, the people in that region wouldn't need 1 million. They would be wealthy. Because in Uganda we have the best climate, we have a productive and young population that has not been skilled, that has not been tapped into, that has not been given the right mindset to engage in production. Even the people that are involved in production, where is the market for their products? You find, I come from Bushenyi, you invest money, buy manure, work on your banana plantation, then people will come and buy the bunch at 3,000, at 2,000. So you realize that, so why? Because if they don't take it, then it's going to rot from your garden. But if there is a plan of adding value and exporting processed food to European markets, to Asian markets, but also for us, for example, now in NUP we are proposing creating local markets in schools through the school feeding program, so that the farmer is able to benefit from all these activities. So the people of West Nile, like the rest of the country, have been left behind, and I think they realize that the opportunity they have now is to change government. But number two, you said the challenge is people are saying, how do you translate this into votes? Why that question? Is because the people of Uganda, it speaks to the state of democracy in the country. That people are worried that what might count is not the votes, but the person who is counting the votes. That is the question that people are asking. Because people, by saying, how do you translate this into votes? First of all, is that most Ugandans now, because of the requirement of the national ID to do anything, people are compelled to register. Even those who may not have registered to vote are registered because
I need an ID.
So most of those people are voters, and they are interested in these processes. Because a person who has time to come and spend a day at a rally cannot fail to come and vote. But there are a number of reasons that hinder the numbers. Why for example, people who have been turning up to vote are even less than they are not even half of the registered voters. There are a number of factors. And some of them, especially in the urban areas, I would think are deliberate by the Electoral Commission, that to deliberately defranchise people. You find, if for example now, they say now we are on the day of voting, a person who even checked and found that is voting at Nachivuo Brew, is waiting to vote for Nana. Reaches there, they say your name is not there. You go and check in Katwe. You go to Katwe, they say no, your name is not there. Go and check in Chivuru. First of all, these materials arrive at midday in Kampala. In Kanungu, by 6 people are lining up to vote. In Kazo, by 7 people materials have reached. But in Kampala, which is not even 10 kilometers from Justice Vyavakama's office. The materials arrive at midday. When they arrive at midday, they say, oh, the biometric verification, the biometric voter verification kit is not working. So by the time the day ends, half of the people that decided to go and vote have been able to vote. So the factors are very many. Then you have the challenge of money in our politics. If you go to some places, there are people who wake up, go to a polling station, and wait to be given money for them to vote. If they are not given money, they don't, because they are waiting for and this is common in some parts of Western Uganda, because they know that Dr. Tweheyo is running with Katana, they are running for MP. So for me, the one who will give me is the one I will vote for. So they will wait at the bar near the polling station. So if none of us gives the money by 3, when they decide to go and vote, they are running out of time. So the question of how do we translate this into votes, I think is a question of the state of our democracy.
All right.
But I think our duty and responsibility is to encourage all the people of Uganda that are registered to turn up in big numbers and vote.
All right.
Because if you have not voted, you have indirectly voted for the one you don't like.
All right. Spectrum X on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's take a break now. When we return, we'll go around the table, responses to what Mr. Katana has submitted. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703-090-090. We'll also be sampling your comments. I can see a number of them are already in, but let's go for this break. Spectrum X will continue after these messages. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra live on Radio 1 FM 90. We're reviewing the major events of the week. We are looking at the presidential campaigns. We began by looking at the NRM attempt to strengthen itself in the Busoga region. We are now looking at the NUP, which is making waves in Western Nile region, but also other parts of the country. And the question is, how do they turn the numbers that we are seeing into ballots? In studio, Mr. Benjamin Katana, National Treasurer, National Unity Platform Party, Mr. Timothy Chemonges, Executive Director, Parliamentary Watch, Center for Policy Analysis, and Dr. James Tweheyo, who is a member of the Electoral Commission of the NRM. Formerly, he was on the Central Executive Committee. And now we want to hear from Ms. Namata, Annette, Mwafrika, who is a candidate for Woman MP Kampala from the People's Front for Freedom. Let's get your take on this. Generally speaking, how the opposition is looking at faring on the campaign trail. We are looking at NUP, but also your political party is in this race. There's been a lot of talk about the political environment and how it's likely to affect how political parties perform. Mr. Katana here talks about that question being an issue of the political environment where we are, whether they can turn the numbers into ballots at the end of the day. Let's hear your take on that debate, on the political environment and how it is likely to affect the performance of the political parties.
Looking at what's going on at campaign trails, security interfering with, just peaceful people chanting who they choose to support or who they go to hear from. Maybe I maybe can say that not all the people that go to somebody's rally are really there because they support them. Some come maybe to hear and maybe make their decision while there. And
maybe to see the person for the first time.
Also, curiosity. So, but when you see how they get treated, if you see what happened in Kiruhura, the stick welding men, what happened in Barara, the beatings, the pulling off of shirts of some of our sisters and consequently sending some to prison, it gives a very worrying environment politically. It gives a very early sign that even on the day of the ballot, on the day of the polls, some people may choose to actually stay away. If you hear what they have been saying, police may be few in numbers, so we are going to need the military to, back up on numbers at polling stations. This is already preparation to intimidate people from going to make their decision on that day. This is already sending a certain wave of fear, a certain wave of, why should I bother? Good enough, it looks like the people are very determined. Given that most of the people, a big side of people now are young people. Young people are very determined to make a statement. The intimidation, pre-intimidation with everything that's being said, don't stay at the polling stations, we'll have military backup police because they're few in number. I think that the youth will really brave it out. The youth I speak to, the youth I hear from, because as aspiring MP in the city, I'm already speaking to people.
Yeah.
The young people are very determined. And for me, that brings a worry on if, of course, state or the ruling government is seeing this determination now. They are talking of things like we'll need military backing up police because the numbers are few, and still the youth seem this very enthusiastic to go, cast the vote, stick around, monitor how it's counted and everything. That's where the worry comes from. Nobody seems to be willing to back away, no matter how strong the messages being sent out on how it's going to be strictly out of bounds for people to stick around the polling stations all day after they vote. As PFF, of course, we are intent on freedom for all. The call is let Ugandans go make their decision. The call is let Ugandans even get into the campaigns and get out of the campaign safely. Our week's call began with asking the country to pray for Dr. Kizza Besigye, who we very much wish had been out during these elections, because the time before they got him, he had really started to call on us to rally behind a common figure for this.
But what happened? Indeed, Dr. Kizza Besigye had talked about you rallying behind a common figure, and we all know who that common figure is. Even talked about that common figure in regard to the 2021 general elections, and he had asked the FDC to actually back that common figure. Does it mean your perception changed when Dr. Besigye went to jail?
It didn't change, but there is a problem of people really insisting on politics of I win it, I must win it, even though they know that win won't mean much. People are not concentrating on having a win for all of us. Dr. Besigye or his counterparts, all of us, the party members, new or existing from the FDC, I don't know. I cannot suggest that anything changed because he went to prison. Politics of I won it before, I must get it, especially at the MP level. And if you look at the city, mayoral level, have caused for Dr. Besigye's call seem ignored.
So are you suggesting that if Dr. Besigye was around, we would probably have a situation where the opposition has joint candidates? Is that
more solid, my thinking is that way. I could be wrong, but
Why do you think so?
I think like that because he has always been the energy behind the opposition. He's respected. He's not to say that if he's in jail, people would not listen, but I do think that people are more concerned with their own wins, and it's a bad one. And I think that he also notices that we have a bit of a leadership crisis.
All right.
There is a bit of a leadership crisis. I do not fear to be picked as contradictory to say that. There is a leadership crisis. Everybody wants to win what they've won before. We are not looking at a win for all of us,
all right,
a collective win. And for me, that it's a pain that may even lead to the country not benefiting from the seeming push with the youth especially.
All right. All right. Let me now come to you, Dr. James Tweheyo, very quickly. I want you to respond to what your counterpart from the other side, Mr. Katana, actually talked about the West Nile region, where you have enjoyed success for the last 10 or so years, but now they seem to be wrestling down that side.
It is not wrong for anybody to go to any other person's rally and listen. It's not wrong. And it is actually the healthy development, healthy environment that has been created by the government that is led by NRM. But it is also a wrong assumption for anybody to say that when the youth come and appear anywhere, these youth are supporting X or Y without a proper calculation of what is there on the ground. Let's look back. We have just finished youth elections. It is known. We had youth councils. What happened then? Were these youth not alive? How come that in these youth council elections, which you have just concluded, we had a win of over 80%? So you mean those who participated are not youth? So I don't want anybody to assume that every other youth is for in any other party in opposition. As NRM, I can tell you, we may, by the way, enjoy the supremacy of the number of youth that are coming up to support in elections, that are coming up to campaign in elections, that are coming up to participate in elections. If that was not the case, then where did these wins come from? Was there any cheating? Did you hear anybody complaining about the elections of the youth?
Yes, there was a complaint from the NUP. Incidentally, those are some of the youth who never appeared or surfaced for elections. But away from that, still the fact is, the youth you're talking about are the youth of this country. They are not a preserve of anybody. All of us are competing and campaigning and convincing these youth to support us. Let's wait for what these youth will produce. And I can guarantee you that we have had a taste of it in the previous elections, and the youth have supported their own and their fellow youth in the NRM, and they have won overwhelmingly in the previous elections. So there's nothing, if we are to go by sequence, simple mathematics, if the leap is this one, the next leap may be even bigger when it comes to the youth participating in elections. But let's wait for the right time. Let every candidate be given an opportunity. That's our argument. Let every candidate. By the way, I wonder why you only look at the President Museveni, my own candidate, and my brother Chagulanyi. Even others, even Mafabi. You saw Mafabi. He had big numbers. It depends on how you mobilize these people to come and watch and listen to what you say. What matters is what you say. How is it received? How is it taken? And how is it going to translate into the elections, the vote that you need? Let's stay on this issue. I want everybody to understand that we need to understand also the dynamics, and then I can share it with you freely. Who are these people who have attended your rally? Can you account for them? Can you say it was Katana who was present, it was Tweheyo, it was my sister here who was present? In our own now, we are moving to account for whoever is there. Including schools?
Yes, including schools. I don't want anybody to believe that anybody in school, any school cannot have an adult, cannot have a voter. So you want to tell me that those people in schools should be defranchised because they're in school? You were all school children at one point. Would you have wished to be defranchised because you were in school? Yes, he's here. Was it wrong?
But I was not a voter.
Yes.
You were not a voter.
You may be a moral booster. By the way, Katana was a voter then. He was of age, but he was not a voter in the area where we were. So it is not wrong for anybody to. And by the way, when he came, did he add value or he didn't? Did he listen to any sense or not to sense? So it is not wrong for anybody to come and listen. It is healthy, very healthy in our view.
All right.
It is also good for these people who are coming in to be peaceful and treated well. And that's where the challenge has been. Anybody who comes in should be given an opportunity to listen, should be given an opportunity to take a decision, could be given you can even go to a rally and you can clap your hands. You can cheer.
How come we have been seeing some of these youth actually running around singing Bobby, Bobby when they are putting on NRM T-shirts? And you just said that you account for anyone who attends your rally.
Yes, you need to account for them.
Are those your supporters?
It is very healthy. When you go to a playground and you see somebody playing well, you can clap. Is it wrong? So, let these youth cheer anybody in the moment of excitement.
All right.
Let these youth be encouraged and advised to go and vote. Let these youth be encouraged to be peaceful. And by the way, I want to credit my brothers for once for preaching peace and unity. Of course.
Even when your people are beating us.
No, not necessarily beating you, because let me tell you, one particular scenario which I witnessed with my own eyes was at Sanga when there was that skirmish. I was on my way coming to Kampala buying a kilo of meat to come with. I saw the skirmishes. I know how it all started and how it all ended. And I want to credit both the police and even the other leaders who were there.
Why do I get a feeling you were there to command those
not
people?
At all.
Coincidence.
Not at all.
What a coincidence.
If I were to command the confusion, then it would have been worse confusion. So I saw it. And I want to tell you the truth. The NUP has a number of vigilant young men. Vigilant, very vigilant. They can even come and start boxing the air. So if you're not careful, you may be tempted. You can be tempted to say,
right.
You can be tempted to say they are daring a fight.
All right.
But they are simply vigilant young men. And if you give them away, they move and you end the whole fracas.
All right. Let's now turn to Mr. Chemonges. Mr. Chemonges, around the table, there seems to be, I believe that this election is actually about the youth, given the numbers that we are seeing in all the rallies. In the NRM's campaigns, we are seeing a mixture, adults and the young. In the NUP, mainly we are seeing dominantly the young people. But people are asking questions and saying, one, are these young people really voters? Secondly, do they comprehend the message? Do they understand exactly what is at stake when it comes to the ballot and how they will actually cast it? Is this election about the youth?
Thank you. I think that it is true, and I agree with the rest of the panelists, that there is a fundamental question in translating the masses, the supporters that come in the rallies to actual votes. But also it is true that not all of them really are there to. Not all of them are your supporters. In fact, if you look at some of the confessions in the Barara incident, where there was an ambush on the NUP presidential movement, you'll notice that they seem to suggest that they saw many young people coming along, and as soon as they were interjected, the young people were nowhere again to be seen. The people had they seem to suggest that the people had joined the other side. That also means that for some of this procession, it's also true that it's infiltrated with all sorts of categories of people.
Last week, an NRM official here actually said that some of these people are coming to see Bobby Wine, the musician, and not Kyagulanyi, the candidate.
I mean, that's also true. It's not a line that Kyagulanyi has been a very outstanding musician. That's not for it's a fact, and all those constitute the reason as to why some of the people have been there, in these rallies, and everyone has their own reasons, and all those reasons are valid. As to whether they translate into actual votes, I think that's another whole thing, and there are many factors to contribute to that. And maybe on the question of young people, it is true that if you look at the demographic composition of the country, not just election, anything and everything seems to be around young people. Because again, as you ask, young people, they bear the brunt of poor governance. Young people bear the brunt of, the question of employment in this country and many other issues, including the critical question of education. But also it is true that young people remain to be quite vulnerable when it comes to them being used by the elite and the political class to have their way on many of the things. Because again, when you look at the crime rates, you will see that majority of them are young people. When you look at the convoys, the people who are either paid, the people who are either interested, majority of them are young
people.
And so it is true that that given the demography, young people will be there. It is true also that given the fact that the demography is young, not all of them would actually be interested in voting. And if you look at the previous statistics, the young, at least if you look at the results by the Electoral Commission, you'll notice that majority of the people who actually voted went to the polling station. Majority were actually between the ages of 25 and 45. Those that are below that, most of them were not very much involved in the elections. And again, those are just statistics. So it is true that young people have a high stake in this, and that to the extent the country can use this as an opportunity, looking at young people as opportunities, it's yet a very, very critical time to utilize the young people as a resource.
All right. Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90. I'm going to read out some of the comments that are coming in from the listeners before we switch our gears to our next subtopic. Comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703-090-090. I have a couple of them already in. Dear Dr. Tweheyo, you know that the two greatest global challenges faced by humanity are extreme poverty and hunger, SDG 1 and SDG 2. Anyone who slaps poverty and hunger in all forms or fails to fight it with the people commits social treason and breaks their trust politically. So, Dr. Tweheyo, how do you expect the people of Busoga who are impoverished to that extent to have political support for you under those circumstances? What happened to the industrial activity in Ginger and cooperatives where people used to make a livelihood? That's a comment from Fred. Somebody writes in and says, Kenneth, help me ask the guy from civil society, Chemonges, what is the difference between opposition and civil society? They speak the same language, always lambasting the government without offering any solutions. In 2021, where the opposition folks tried to form a coalition via the TDA, Godba, who claims he is from the civil society, was at the center of the attempted coalition. For me, civil society is an extended arm of the opposition. Good evening, Spectrum Extra. Abe Kwizera, listening in from Kawempe Kutano. Greetings to the gentleman in the studio and the lady. When the campaign candidates take pride in pulling large crowds of people in their rallies, they don't see the current rate of unemployment in the country. More than 90% of those who attend rallies are the youth below 40 years of age. Some of us graduated with degrees years ago and have never got any meaningful work to do. It is not declared a public holiday such that they attend because they are off day from work. Trust me, not even a chapati maker or a welding shop worker shall close business to attend such rallies. For me, I'm worried when I see such youth on these rallies because we are seated on a time bomb. Unfortunately, those politicians don't see it, now including Mr. Museveni himself. Ugandans, cry for yourselves. Katana, if you are sure that you cannot be declared winner when you win, why are you participating in the election process?
But where is he getting that from?
Then we get another comment. Good evening, Spectrum Extra. If the election were to be free and fair, NUP would win the election, but unfortunately, they cannot decide who counts the votes. A percentage without declaring where they are from, just like in the past election. That's a comment from Mawa Amaza Moyo. Ken, the problem of Uganda is the so-called educated thieves who keep misleading Ugandans that NRM is the best political party. That's a comment from Sam Okello in Kumi. Good evening, Radio 1, FM 90. Thank you for the show. These things of elections is wastage of taxpayers' money. Why can't those other parties boycott the election? Because the winner is already known. Anderson, the opposition in Uganda is a fragmented organization occupied with fighting one another instead of mobilizing and teamwork. For instance, in Uganda, DF and NUP are battling for positions of members of parliament and mercilessly damaging each other. PFF looks at FDC as their greatest enemy. Opposition contestants are pulling out. How shall one become a president of Uganda without majority MPs under this current system? Opposition is a serious circus. Wamai Charles Butoto listening in from Mbale City. Commander Gulem in Mitiana, Rising says, good evening, Spectrum Extra. Council Katana, thank you for that wonderful submission on voter turnout. But you left out another factor. I think the voter turnout is high because it's the voters' register that is inflated. The numbers that vote and the genuine numbers. Well, those are the comments that we are getting in from the listener. Who would like to go first? And I think, Mr. Katana, would you like to respond to somebody who says, if you're sure you will not be declared winners, why are you participating in this election process?
But I think, first of all, that person is misrepresenting facts. I don't think I mentioned on this show or anywhere else that if we really need to be declared. So I want first to make the record straight. First of all, it's true, because when you are the NRM government has captured the state of Uganda, and by extension, the state machinery, which should be neutral, is now an extension of the political machinery of Museveni and the NRM. So institutions like Electoral Commission, there would be independence is greatly compromised. And that undermines their ability to organize a free, fair, and credible election. However, it is also important for people to know that this is not the first country in the world that has had a regime that has captured state institutions and is using them to do politics. There are various examples where the will of the people, having, first of all, understood the mission and turned up in big numbers, voted. And, for example, in Gambia, you had Yahya Jammeh, who was determined to ensure that he rigs and stays in office. He was overwhelmed. So we believe that even with the lack of independence on the part of the Electoral Commission, the overbearing, inappropriate involvement of the security forces in this election, all those factors notwithstanding, if the people of Uganda turn up and vote overwhelmingly, and for us we have been saying that the responsibility of the voter should not stop at casting the vote, that we have a duty as citizens, first of all, to call upon each other to participate in this process. But number 2, to vote. Number 3, to guard the vote. Number 4, firmly challenge whoever attempts to subvert the will of the people. So we believe that we know for a fact, because history has taught us, that the plans to rig are alive. But we also know that we have a responsibility to challenge and fail such plans. And you do not succeed by folding arms in the subjugation and defeat. That these people are going to rig, so we don't participate. So how are you going to change the trajectory? So I want to give that person, to help that person understand that the only medicine to oppression, to repression, to rigging is resistance. You must resist. You don't give up. But number 2, if you don't participate, are you going to pick up arms? What is the alternative? And so that person may be just calling upon the people of Uganda to just give up. What was the other question?
That was it.
Yes.
All right. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll shift our gears to third discussion, which is the phenomenon of Unopposed. There has been a lot of discussion about this issue. Why are candidates of the opposition pulling out? Were they part of the so-called malls that joined the opposition to sort of weaken their strategy? We'll have a discussion around that issue, but we do encourage you to keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703-090-090. Spectrum Extra continues after these messages. Thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, your moderator. I have a panel of 4: Dr. James Tweheyo, member of the NRM Electoral Commission, former member of the NRM Central Executive Committee, where he represented workers; Ms. Namata, Annette Mwafrika, candidate for Woman MP from the People's Front for Freedom; Mr. Benjamin Katana, National Treasurer, National Unity Platform Party; Mr. Chemonges, Executive Director at Parliamentary Watch and the Center for Policy Analysis. Now, our last discussion today is on this phenomenon of Unopposed. The craze, people, I'm told, doing everything possible to remain unopposed? Well, we've been told a number of things. There are those who are saying it's a mistake by the opposition. They nominated people whom they didn't actually know. Some people are pointing fingers at intimidation and corruption. So it's a basket of things. We want to understand this issue and what it means for the political terrain that we are in. And I want to begin with you, Mr. Chemonges, on this issue of the unopposed phenomenon.
Thank you, Kenneth. Maybe I should start just maybe by commenting briefly on one of the questions that came in from the listeners.
Oh, civil society.
Trying to understand why civil society seems to lambast or be very critical on government, and probably it's part of is an extension to the opposition, which is absolutely not true. I think that, the role of civil society is to really complement what government's critical mandate is. And that also support would entail being able to critique, being able to raise concerns where need be, but also, more importantly, to see how best they can deliver that service. For the better part, as it is today, there seems to be quite a lot happening that is not right, and that it's just fair to call out on those that need to be called out, and there is need to offer guidance where there is need to be. In light of the question of unopposed phenomenon, I think this is very unfortunate, first of all. And the true test is on the Electoral Commission, which is the referee. Because we are seeing very interesting situations where candidates' names are being removed from the register. We are seeing situations where there seems to be some pride coming along with members, the candidates being unopposed, which of course greatly disadvantages the citizenry in terms of being able to have the question of the citizens' agency to decide and to offer that agency, and not to allow candidates get to represent people on technical grounds if they are there. An example, of course, maybe would be the first, which was noted from the speaker's constituency, where we saw candidates, and all of them, their names somehow, missing. Some of their credentials not appearing in the register, which is very, very interesting and peculiar. And it also speaks. If you look at the other perspective, is that there seems to be a similar pattern, and most of the people who are being victims in this case are the opposition, which again requires a bit of a critical understanding to understand why is it that those in the NRM seems to benefit from this and the opposition have to pay the price for this.
They're saying that the opposition made mistakes. They nominated people they didn't know, people who suddenly turn around, people who are not their members.
I think that point is here not there, because one of the candidates that may be referred is, candidate Asio of
a relative
to
Annette.
Who by all means and purposes, if you look at her confessions on the social media, but also look at her remarks during the nomination, you see that there's some level of coercion, there's some level of use of resources, and it's not just the point of poor selection of candidates. Of course, I also should say that when you look at all these factors, you see that some of the individuals who seem to benefit from this process seems to be, there are two phenomena. The first is around a section of them positioning for the next government, especially having to position themselves as their closeness to President Museveni himself, and that would give them vantage points, either for position, either as speaker, or for some of these ministerial positions, which is very loud. And also the other phenomena is around being able to leave the constituency politics and now focus more on the presidential elections. And as you see, for example, the speaker, which for me I'm very interested in, is that you've seen she's now moved and she's putting a lot of her attention in Busoga sub-region, which can clearly be tied into the just concluded SEC elections. And to that point, you see that there is some level of, there seems to be an interest to make a point that the politics of the constituency can be settled at that, and now we come and follow you in your region.
Power.
The question of egos, and which greatly undermines the question of democracy, and more importantly, allowing the citizens to be part and participate in extending and delegating that citizens' agency.
At what point do you blame the Electoral Commission, if you can tell us?
In this all, you find that the Electoral Commission is at the center of all this. First of all, to ensure that the register is protected, but also the Electoral Commission must at all points ensure that they are just not being fair, but they must also be seen to be fair. When you see names of individuals that have presented themselves to be candidates missing in the course of them trying to campaign, it's very telling that you have a situation where the pattern of those being removed or withdrawing
from the candidate
from the only opposition candidates. It's telling of this,
okay.
And so I think there is a legitimacy question that the Electoral Commission must answer.
All right.
That they must be seen to be fair, and at all points that all candidates, irrespective of their political party, have an opportunity to not present whatever they have to the people, and the people decide.
All right. Let me come to Nana Mwafrika. You've also followed this debate. It has been raging on social media and everywhere. What's your take on this phenomenon of unopposed people fighting hard to become unopposed?
I think that it is the NRM long-standing habits manifesting in new forms, new tactics. It's stealing of the poll, the ballot in more sophisticated ways. Because if you look, the beneficiaries so far have been NRM. It would be too much to just be coincidence that all the people that are having something lacking or didn't have paper written well were opposition.
It's also a possibility that they were opposition?
The only unique situation is, of course, our very own Ivan Bowe, who picked on some reluctance, maybe by some of the candidates. He's taken seven people from his contesting for the same constituency with him, and decided to make an alarm that they took something very casually, they took something very lightly that should not be. You cannot call Kampala Impala or Impala and then mean the same thing, especially in something as serious as an election. That's the only unique one that I see in this that maybe may come off as a genuine move for somebody to remind the EC, look, if elections are such a serious thing, you cannot start calling constituencies things they are not. But the rest, looking at the Nyamutoro case, the other case from where? I don't have it off head. Kabarole, then Asio. I think that it's the usual NRM bullying, using resources that they choose to just amass themselves to keep using to steal our chance to decide who leads us. It is clear bullying and a new way to steal themselves into positioning.
So you actually think the Ivan Bowe petition is likely to succeed, looking at what is true? Because Ivan Bowe is saying the other candidates were nominated under Nakawa West, while the actual constituency is supposed to be Nakawa Division West, something like that. But I've seen also his posters, and he has Nakawa West on it. So I don't know.
On the poster, I'm free to call myself for Muyirivi, to excite the crowd.
Okay.
But on the serious matters, in this form that they give you to fill, I do think that his petition should succeed. What reason should it be trashed? He has a very, very serious point.
Okay.
It's in taking things very casually, serious things being taken as a playful game that we got ourselves where we are with the current government. We often don't take very serious note of otherwise very serious things. I think that his case holds water.
Shouldn't we treat it as a clerical error, something like that, like they normally say in court?
No. For me, when I got my phone I'm vying for Kampala, the district. There is a part on those papers that asked me to mention where I voted, my voter location. Indeed, I remember that when I was filling in, when I, pushed my phone, voter location, Nakawa Division West. To remove that division piece and put Nakawa West,
is a problem.
It comes off as something a bit lazy.
All right. If the one of Ivan Boy should succeed, where about a petition where somebody comes and says, these voters actually did not nominate this candidate? Because it's a requirement for you to present signatures. Why should the one of Ivan Boy succeed and the one of the NRM of signatures don't?
The Boy case helps not just we, the intending candidates, the candidates to come in the future to get more serious about really serious things, but it also helps the EC educate the populace more. It helps the relevant institutions that should be, sharing information that should inform people, whether intending candidates or otherwise, because I do think that it's not just the MPs in this bit of it's not just the 7
candidates
that are shocked by how this can be made a serious thing. I'm very sure even among us, among a lot of other people in Kampala, they wonder,
how should that be an issue?
How should that be an issue? It should.
All right.
We must keep the culture of taking things seriously.
All right. Let's go to Mr. Katana, the most aggrieved political parties, NUP, looking at how things have been unfolding. They've been pointing fingers at you and saying you've been nominating people you do not know, you're gambling with candidates. I'm sure you followed the debate that has been online about this issue. And someone would say that somehow you become a laughing stock in this whole issue of unopposed candidates.
Maybe in the eyes of unserious people.
All right.
Because serious people would put the blame where it falls. I think, first of all, and which should worry the people of Uganda, is the growing culture of impunity. But closely associated with that is what I talked about earlier, the state capture, the capture of state institutions by powerful individuals. But number 3 is that the NRM has largely degenerated now into, it operates like a criminal enterprise, like mafia organizations, where you have a don, you have some powerful people in different territories. In those territories, whatever they please, they do, for as long as it does not threaten his power at the helm of the criminal organization. Now, if you are a Nabanja in Bunyoro, you have the power to choose who should run against you and who shouldn't run against you. Because this question of denomination of candidates, it started with the stopping people from being nominated. People being locked out. In Bunyoro, there is even the person who's running against Nabanja is a lawyer. They said she didn't have senior 6. They stopped her. You saw what happened in Vukedea. There is a lady of NUP called Mase Alupo who was removed from the voters register by a decision of the Tribunal of Electoral Commission at the parish level, where she did not even have a chance to make her case. So I think the current leadership of the Electoral Commission has really distinguished itself as the most partial, as the most unfair, as the most partisan, and I would say criminal-minded. Because if you can reach a level of taking such decisions without putting into consideration the fact that you have a duty to the country, then it borders on criminality. You have, in all these cases, it has been the powerful people. So when those they did not block at the point of nomination, now they are moving to denominate them. And you see, if your opponent is a party candidate, even when you bribe them, they cannot get out of the race without the sanctioning of the party. So that's why now they have resorted to new means of making sure that they go through Electoral Commission. They say that, because what is happening, what are the facts pertaining, is that they go and look at the nomination documents of Katana. They say the people who sponsored you, or nominated you, or seconded, you have Kenneth Lukwago Anderson, you have Chemonges. They look for them. They give them money. They hide them. They threaten them. After 2 weeks, they bring them here. They say, for us, when they brought these forms, they said these were forms of PDM. But number two, if it is a question of verification of signature, it is not a matter that can just be determined in the manner it is being determined. There would even be a requirement for a handwriting expert. Because I'm saying, this is Dr. Tweheyo's signature. He's saying it is not mine. So the suspect document should be subjected to a handwriting expert and the report produced. But the Electoral Commission is rushing because for them they want to achieve a political objective in favor of powerful individuals. So if there's any person who is looking for a person to laugh at in this process, it should be the people at the Electoral Commission to laugh at, because they have departed from their cardinal responsibility of ensuring that these processes are fair. And I said that growing impunity should worry people, because it is not just restricted to these parliamentary campaigns. Tomorrow it will be about your land. The next day it will be about your car. They will come and say, this car, while it is in your names, it is not yours, it's for Katana, because Katana is more powerful than you. And it will go, because that's how soldiers during a meantime we are taking out people's cars. Now these ones are taking, they started with the land, they are denominating people. You don't know what they will take next. But so it should be looked at for what it is.
All right.
Impunity. But most importantly, leaders should know that these elections, for you to get legitimacy, the people you want to lead should participate in determining who leads them. Because that is the consensus we agreed upon when we made the Constitution. Now, for you to go through the ventilator, because some of these people even have capacity to use other means, money and the rest, and win in these constituencies. But now they have reached the epitome of impunity and arrogance. They want to have the badge of the uncontested. But you see in the eyes of the public, I think their seats are more contested than they would have been if these people had remained in the race.
All right. All right. Let's come to Dr. James Tweheyo. The NRM is being pointed at, and you and the Electoral Commission, they are saying you're playing games. But let's hear your take on this matter very quickly, because time is also not on our side.
I don't want anybody to say any person is playing games, because in the politics, every other person is looking for advantage over his opponent. That's fact number one. Fact number two, the law provides that at the end of nominations, the candidates in any position are free to seek and look at the documents and examine the documents of those they're interested in. And if they find fault, they're supposed to raise it. And this is not the first time it is happening.
Should that be before or after nomination?
No, after nominations. Because you cannot call somebody a candidate when he's not yet nominated. So after nominations, you are free to scrutinize the documents of your contender And once you find fault with it, then you can always make an appeal and say, look, this person who's competing with me has a fault. And this fault is so grave that cannot allow him to proceed. For example, at one time in Shtagwenda, if you can remember very well, a member of parliament, sitting member of parliament then, failed to meet the requirement of the time for nominations. He went after the time of closing. It is clearly evident that person was eliminated because, and he was of our own party, because he failed to reach in time.
Now,
you saw it at one point when President Museveni jumped on the border when time was running short. At one time he said, no, me, I understand what the law means, have to run. So, and I don't want anybody also to believe that the people who have been forced or convinced or persuaded to get out are only the opposition. There are so many of our own leaders who participated in the primaries, who felt they were not didn't comfortably lose, who decided to come in independence, but later they have retracted their steps.
That's because the NRM has engaged them.
There is all the freedom. You can be engaged by a party. You can be engaged by the individual. You can be even having a discussion with your contender. And that is, I think, the democracy it is. What I don't agree with is for anybody to be coerced. For anybody to be coerced. And by the way, a number of our people are not only gullible, but they are only interested in money. Countrywide. By the way, some of these other candidates who are competing not because they have a lot to offer, but because they want to go to parliament and earn. Let us be realistic. And therefore, anybody can always put what in Uganda they call a miziziko to ensure that his opponent doesn't win. And that is actually why, in many other cases, either some people have been talked out, some people have been convinced, some people can be even bought. And if you can allow to be bought like a goat in the market, then what is that you are going to offer to the people? Even if you reached parliament, wouldn't you have been paid to lose a motion or to retract it or to drop it? I think it is even better for these people to withdraw before they cross over to parliament than going to parliament to cause a lot of trouble and betray our people. So this is the whole issue. So I don't want anybody to say, it is only opposition. I want to say many other people have withdrawn. Many people have voluntarily, by the way. Many other people have found the terrain very, very difficult to go through.